Hello YouTube. In this video you are going to learn how to implement text-to-speech in your Android apps.
And that's exactly what you're going to learn in this video. So let's get started using text-to-speech with Android 12 and Kotlin. So I have this little hello world text here, then an edit text, and then a button. Okay, so if we look at the code here, it's all inside of a constraint layout, the text view, an edit text, and the button. Very simple. So now in the main activity, that's where we're going to implement the code. So let's go ahead and set everything up that we need for it. First of all, we need to create a text-to-speech object. So I'm going to create a private var TTS, which is a shortcut for text-to-speech. And you see there is this class called text-to-speech. We need to import it, of course, and this will be a nullable because I'm going to use it throughout this class that I have here. And then I'm also going to use data binding. So let's use a binding object, and this will be the activity main binding, which of course only works if we have binding activated. So let me do that real quick as well inside of my build Gradle, and here the build features are going to be view binding being true. All right, now let's sync it, and then we can use view binding throughout our application. All right, now activity main binding is importable, and now let's use it. So let's first of all make sure that our binding object isn't going to be empty. So it will be an activity main binding inflated with the layout inflator, like so. And then we can accordingly set that as the content view. So binding, which is a nullable dot root. Okay, so that's why we have this question mark here. And then let's initialize the TTS, which is a text-to-speech object, which means we of course need to assign text-to-speech to it. So here you need to assign the context as well as what is the listener. So I'm going to say that this is also going to be the listener. This of course only works if our class is actually going to be the listener. So let's see what actions we have here. Let main activity implement interface text-to-speech on init listener. That sounds great. Let's do exactly that. And then also implement the members. And you see it added this implementation here at the top, text-to-speech on init listener, as well as the override function on init, which is called once initialized. So call to signal the completion of the text-to-speech engine initialization. That's what this on init does for us. So before we use that, let's first of all set up our button that we have. And this is the button that has the ID of button speak. And I'm going to use it using button speak set on click listener here. So once I click on this button, I want something to happen. And I get a view here, which I can then use. And I can also ignore the usage of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the entered text, which is coming from this edit text here, this edit text here. And then I want to load its text. Okay, so we get the text, which is a nullable. So we're checking whether it's empty. And if it's empty, we're just going to write a toast saying, hey, please enter a text. Otherwise we can't speak anything. So here, very simple toast. And otherwise, speak something out. So here, to do speak the text, please. Okay, so this is where we want to speak the text. So let's create a function which will speak the text. All right, so I'm gonna create a private function, and this function will only be used in this main activity. So I'm gonna make it private. So speak out, and it should get a text that we pass to it. And here it's going to use our text-to-speech to use the speak method. So here you can now enter the text that you want to speak. Then you use the text-to-speech queue, and we're going to flush the old stuff. So we're going to only display the current, or say the current text-to-speech that we want to run. Then we pass the params, and we're gonna not pass any params here. And we need to use the utterance ID here, which in my case is going to be an empty string. And you see in this case, the speak method is not going to be slice through or cross through, because you see, if I don't have this utterance ID, just not happy with it. So we need to have the utterance ID, even though we can also just pass an empty string to it. And in case you're wondering what utterance means, well, utterance is something like a comment, a remark, an expression, statement, something like that. Okay, so it's a very well, for a non-native speaker, very uncommon word. I didn't know this word before I used text-to-speech. And if you want to know more about text-to-speech, definitely check out the documentation. It's always useful. There you can also find out more about every single parameter that we're using. But basically, we can either flush the current statement, which means whatever was said in the text-to-speech before will be deleted, or we can add the new thing that we want to speak to what is already being spoken. Okay, so here there's this qadd alternative. So qflush or qadd are the two options that you have here. And I would recommend to try both to see how they are differing from each other. Okay, now when you are using text-to-speech and binding, you should use the onDestroy method to really make sure that you don't have any data leakage. So here, super onDestroy, that's great. And if TTS is not equal null, then make sure that you stop the TTS. So stop the text-to-speech. So for example, if the application should be closed, you don't want the text-to-speech to keep on going, otherwise the user might be annoyed because he thinks, holy smokes, this is not stopping. It's all right if it's just a sentence, but imagine it's a text-to-speech of an entire book, for example, which is not what you would use it for, but it would be an option, right? And here, shut it down. So here, shutting it down, and then also binding is null. So let's make sure that our data binding is also set to null. All right. So now we can actually do the speaking. So here in the else clause, let's go ahead and say, okay, we want to speak. So let's speak out. And here we want to get the entered text. Okay, because we know that it's not going to be empty at this point. So let's get it and make a string out of it, because you need to pass a string to our speak out method. That's how we defined it. Okay. All right. Now that by itself wouldn't do the trick, because we also need to make sure that we set the right language to our text-to-speech, because it wouldn't know. All right, so we can get the status, which is, by the way, this P0. So I'm not happy with this name, because status is a more descriptive name of what it actually is. So we are checking here whether the text-to-speech setting is to success. So whether text-to-speech is ready. Okay. And if that's the case, let's try to set the language of our text-to-speech. And it's a nullable, we're going to force unwrap it here, set a language, and you can use a locale here. And you see there are many different options. Choose the one that fits to your language. So if you're American, you can use US, and then also use locale import here. We need to import a locale, otherwise it won't work for us, which seems to be in the util. Okay, and then we can check if the result has a certain value, because if you look at the setLanguage method, it will return an integer which can have multiple different values. So for example, text-to-speech could be lang, and you see language not supported, language available, language country available, and so forth. So in case we have missing data or the language is not supported, we're going to throw an error, okay? Or we're going to log an error. So result will be text-to-speech. So here I'm checking the other text-to-speech, lang not supported. So if either of those is the case, then throw in a log entry. Of course, you could also say something to the user. And then otherwise, if it's not success, we also know that something went wrong. So let's log that as well. So we're going to say, okay, initialization failed. So at this point, we can test our application and we can use text-to-speech. So there we are. Let's say hello world first.
Hello world.
And you see it comes up. or let's say hello learners. How's it going?
Hello learners. How's it going?
All right, and if I click it multiple times,
Hello learners.
You see,
hello learners. How's
it
it
just
going?
cuts the old saying or the
Hello
old
learners.
speech
How's
and
it going?
just starts from the beginning. And that is what we have achieved by using qflush. All right, if we were to use add here, qadd, it would look different. So let's check it out real quick. So again, hello world.
Hello world. Hello world. Hello world.
You see now?
Hello world.
It just adds it to the current queue. And this could be annoying or this could be exactly what you want. So it really depends on what you want to achieve with your text-to-speech application. All right, so this was a little introduction into text-to-speech. I hope you enjoyed this video and hope to see you in the next one.